Jali is Libya's former ambassador to the US. He quit last week, saying he could no longer support a government which attacked its own civilians. He wants restrictions on Libyan airspace as soon as possible.
On the non-fly zone, this is a very important issue because now Gaddafi, he is start to strike in east part and in the middle. And he yesterday and today he strike very important area which is where the oil supply go to Europe and to the world. And then fly zone that they will strike the strategic points which paralyze this regime to allow the Libyan people in the east to march to rescue their relatives, their families who are suffering now under a very control of the army of loyal to the Gaddafi.
Now, Muammar Gaddafi and his allies have also been warned that they risk becoming war crime suspects. The International Criminal Court has announced a full investigation into alleged human rights violations in Libya. Speaking at The Hague, prosecutor Luis Moreno Ocampo said Gaddafi supporters have been identified and will be charged. Government officials from the Netherlands negotiating with Libyan authorities for the release of 3 Dutch Marines. They were captured on Sunday by pro-Gaddafi forces in the coastal city of Sirte. Dutch officials say the Marines were trying to rescue 2 Europeans who've since been handed over to the Dutch embassy in Tripoli. Libya's embassy in The Hague remains under watch by police while government negotiates the Marines' freedom. Graphic video has emerged of what appears to be a group of soldiers massacred in Libya. The video was posted to Facebook on Thursday. It cannot be independently verified, but it appears to show the bodies of at least 21 men in military clothing, bound and blindfolded. One seems to be alive. Well, the Facebook page says the video was first run on state TV, which identified the dead as soldiers killed by anti-government fighters. But the Facebook posting says the men were actually killed by pro-government forces for refusing to fight. Tens of thousands of people are expected to rally across the Arab world on Friday as they keep up the pressure for reforms. Anti-government protesters in Yemen are not letting up on their demand for President Ali Abdullah Saleh's immediate resignation. Almost daily demonstrations have been taking place for several weeks now. The protesters have rejected a proposal by some opposition groups for Saleh to leave office by the end of this year. And over in Bahrain, there have been violent clashes between Sunnis and Shias. Youths armed with sticks and batons charged at one another on the streets of Hamad. It's the first time the two sides have openly clashed since protests demanding constitutional reforms began 2 weeks ago. This comes as opposition groups say they are ready to talk to the government. In Oman, thousands of people took part in one of the largest pro-government rallies so far the country in Thursday. They gathered outside the palace of longtime ruler Sultan Qaboos bin Said in the northeastern town of Mana. The show of support came as pro-reform groups staged a 6th straight day of protests in the capital, Muscat. Egypt's interim military rulers have appointed a new prime minister. Essam Sharaf will take over from the unpopular Ahmed Shafiq after his surprise resignation on Thursday. Sharaf, a former transport minister, has been asked to form a government. Hundreds of Tunisians have celebrated after the interim president announced elections on July 24th. The polls are to elect a council to form a new constitution. But this also means Fouad Mebaza will stay in power beyond his March 15th deadline. 6 women have been killed in Côte d'Ivoire during a rally for Alassane Ouattara. That's the internationally recognized winner of November's elections. Witnesses say security forces loyal to President Laurent Gbagbo gunned the women down in the northern district of Abidjan. Well, Youssouf Bamba, Côte d'Ivoire's ambassador to the United Nations, told AlJazeera what he thinks needs to be done to stop the violence.
I'm calling right now for a change of the mandate of the UN mission in Côte d'Ivoire. This mandate should be upgraded, should be reinforced to, let's say, to have a sort of peace enforcement mandate, because otherwise the killing will be perpetrated and the civilians are without any help. As you know, the protection of civilians is the heart of the peacekeeping operation. That should be fulfilled. Right now, the United Nations mission in Côte d'Ivoire could not fulfill this mandate, this task.
China says it will increase its defense budget by 12.7% this year, raising its spending to about $90 billion. But it reassures that its return to double-digit military growth is not a threat to other countries. The announcement comes on the eve of the National People's Congress, which lays down the country's social and economic goals for the next 5 years.
Since the NPC session has not yet formally opened, if it's approved by the upcoming session, the defense budget for the year 2011 will be around 601.1 billion yuan.
Our correspondent Melissa Chan outlines the focus of this year's meeting.
It's one of the few times of the year when China's leaders make major announcements. The National People's Congress, ostensibly the country's legislative body, but with much of the decision-making made well beforehand. This year, the government's preoccupation will be the economy. Chinese Premier Wen Jiabao has said he would like to see China limit its annual GDP growth to 7%. Given the soaring real estate prices, the government has promised 36 million affordable homes to be built over the next 5 years. Personal income tax will also see a change, with the premier promising it will benefit medium and low-income brackets. It's clear the government is concerned not just with China's growing economy, but with how the money is distributed.
It's a shift from a focus on quantity to quality. And then whether that has to do with the environment or geographic distribution of development or income distribution among classes.
Inflation is the other big problem here, particularly with food prices, giving people a reason to grumble about the government every day.
It would use all the mechanisms at its disposal, interest rates, reserve requirements, even the exchange rate to fight inflation.
So on Saturday, when Premier Wen Jiabao takes the podium, it will be to assure the public the government has this under control.
This year, the word to watch for will be happy. Already, we're seeing it in state media, a happy China and happy Chinese. It's a government promising more than just the basics to the people, more than prosperity, but also well-being. Melissa Chan, AlJazeera, Beijing.
We'll recap the latest from Libya in a moment, plus funerals for opposition fighters killed defending the Brega oil terminal. A full report is coming up. And warm smiles mask growing tensions. The U.S. and Mexican leaders meet to discuss cross-border drug violence. Stay with us.
Hello, would you believe we have yet another winter storm making its way across the United States? Big area cloud just piling its way through the plains. That's heading towards the Great Lakes. We've got quite a keen southerly wind coming in, actually, and that's going to continue just nudging its way a little further northwards, pushing the warm, moist air, the damp weather, into the cold air, and that's why it's readily turning to snow just around the Midwest into that northeastern corner. Temperatures are recovering with those southerly winds, around 6 Celsius there for New York, creeping into double figures for DC, but as you can see for eastern Canada,